Many times, we humans are short-sighted and we can't really see the things that God has planned out for us who are His children. If you only knew the plans that God has for you, yes, you, it would cause you not to chase after those minor crumbs that you're constantly anxious about not getting. A vivid scenario that comes to mind is the day a friend of mine and I needed to get back to our rooms and rain was falling. So there were no cabs, and each vehicle that came was already accompanied with pushing and struggling to get in. Now, even while I pushed and struggled without no result, my friend stood still under a shade, typing on the phone. I was quite upset. I had been pushing to get us a vehicle or even tricycle just to get us home, but this friend seemed so unconcerned. Now, just when I was about to really lash out, a nice bus stopped in front of us. She opened the bus and confidently sat in, and she asked me to join her. I was shocked. All the while, she was preparing something bigger and better than I could have actually thought. Unfortunately, she didn't tell me. Now, maybe if she did, I would have been more at ease and I wouldn't have put up that struggle to get a cab. Now, this story comes a little close to what happens with God and His children. In fact, many times, God doesn't tell you the full picture of the exact thing He's planning. And just like my friend was on the phone constantly trying to reach someone to pick us up, you probably wonder why it seems as though God is minding His business. By the way, kindly like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more enlightening content such as this. So this brings me to the very first thing you need to set in your mind as a believer. You need to set in your mind that God always has a plan. Now, God isn't like some random teenager or youth who simply allows what happens to happen and follows suit. Rather, He orchestrates things such that even when you, a believer, decides to do something other than what He's planned, you decide to walk in the valley of the shadow of death, as long as you're willing, His rod and His staff is there to comfort you. His rod for correction and His staff to guide you right back on track. Now, no wonder He says He causes all things to work for your good. Either those things are caused by you or other people. Dear believer, settle it in your mind that God has a plan for you. Either your birth was an accident by human definition, or it was a coincidence, or whatever else humans can use in describing the circumstances surrounding your birth. You, my dear friend, are never a mistake to God. So those times when the thoughts of whether or not God has you in mind, when those thoughts of depression about you not seeing what you want occurs, hey, He has the blueprint for your life in His hands. And just like He told Jeremiah in the 29th chapter and the 11th verse, that the thoughts He has towards you are thoughts of good and not of evil, to give you an expected end. I want you to know that God is thinking about you. And before you were formed, God knew you and He gave you an ordination. Think about it. Have you ever had a period where you didn't understand exactly what God was doing when He gave you an instruction that left you wondering if He actually thought about it well? For instance, I wanted to go into a relationship and I really liked this person a lot. In fact, we seemed perfect together. And the not so perfect side, we were willing to work on it. But then came the leading of God's Spirit and I didn't feel at peace again to go into that relationship. I felt I was losing. I felt I was losing one of the best persons in the world. But looking back now, I'm so glad I didn't go ahead to start the relationship. Probably, you've experienced something like this too. Maybe you didn't understand then, but right now, when you think about it, you're thankful that you trusted God's plan. And this is only because He does have a plan, and although you didn't see it then, you're thankful for it now. Now, the second thing you must realize is that God is preparing you for that big plan. Now, as we've established that God is a master planner, He's a master planner who apparently has the master key to every door, so you must know that His plan is never small. God is always thinking big. His ways are mind-blowing to the human heart. No wonder He said that eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, neither has it come to the heart of men the things that God has prepared for those who love Him. God always thinks exceedingly abundantly, and this is why even in the work of redeeming you, He left no stone unturned. He went for the big plan, so realize that God has a plan, and His plans for you will leave you dumbfounded. Now, David, the shepherd boy who tended to his father Jesse's sheep, would probably have simply wanted a little more attention from his father and brother. Now, maybe some help in the field, but he would never have expected that he would have been made the king over Israel. Now, God went far beyond the mark, far above what He was asking for. Now, this was the same with Joseph. Now, one would have thought that he would have become a wealthy man, even richer than his brothers. Who would have thought that he would have become a prime minister, and not just that he would save his family during the period of famine. Now that you know that God has big plans for you, and that you shouldn't try to box him into the small ideas of your mind, you must understand that every process and stage that he takes you through is in preparation for that big plan that he has. A perfect example is the story of David. Dear believer, when God takes you through a stage or a process, he has a reason. There's something you must learn or unlearn from that place. David simply tended to his sheep. He protected them with his heart, and he defended them against the devouring beast. Now, who would have known that all of this was a preparation ground? Yes, a training ground. Now, God has a training ground for his children where he prepares them heart-wise and physically for the task ahead. When David was trying to face Goliath, he simply saw him as one of those devouring beasts trying to snatch his sheep from him, and he was willing to defend them. Now, that's not all. David in the fields had learned how to rely and trust on God. He knew that God was his help, and he didn't joke with it. He knew that God shouldn't be joked with, so when he faced the uncircumcised Philistine, he came in the name of God. But before we go on, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel to be the first one to be notified when a video drops. Dear friend, I want you to know that God has a plan for your life, and his plan is big, really big. He's preparing you for it because God doesn't work with incompetence. As long as you're sure that it's God who put you somewhere, stay and learn. Give it your all, because God is very wise and he's going to blow your mind, because he's going to give you so much more than you expect. Maybe you've been asking God for something and it doesn't seem to be forthcoming. Well, don't give up hope. Continue steadfastly in what you're doing. Or maybe you feel as though you're going through so much pain in your place of work, or you're being too stressed enormously when you should be relaxing. Or maybe you're suffering for something that you had no part in. Well, guess what? Relax. Relax. Because it will only make your success story more interesting. By the time your blessings arrive, it won't be arguable. Now, do you know that the gestation period of the elephant is about 22 weeks, which is unlike other animals whose period is shorter? But when that period is over, everyone in that vicinity knows that something has happened. It can't be denied. It's not how fast. No, the first to start isn't necessarily the first to finish. Lastly, trust in God. Now, all that has been discussed above would amount to nothing without trust. Trust in God. Now, trusting in God would mean that you know that God is able to bring to pass all that he has said concerning you. That even when, like Joseph, human circumstances try to delay it, and when people like Joseph's butler who are meant to remember you forget you, you would believe that your help doesn't come from man, it comes from God. Now, God uses a man, and when one door closes, he opens up another door. Now, even when, like Mary, things turn upside down, and the man you plan to marry says he's not getting married to you because you're following God's plan for your life,